Grisly crimes from past. Judgment on the Ripper. A notice, handwritten by Bradford lorry driver Peter Sutcliffe, was displayed in the cab of his vehicle. It read, "In this trunk is a man whose latent genius, if unleashed, would rock the nation, whose dynamic energy would overpower those around him. Better let him sleep." The humor sours when you remember that Sutcliffe turned out to be the Yorkshire Ripper, a man who killed and horribly mutilated 13 women in his 5-year reign of terror. The murders began in October 1975 with the killing of Wilma McCann, a 28-year-old prostitute whose corpse, battered by hammer blows to the skull and pierced by screwdriver stab wounds, was discovered on a Leeds playing field. The Ripper's next 3 victims had all plied the same trade in the red light district of Leeds and Bradford. But the pattern of murder changed in June 1977, when a perfectly respectable 16-year-old girl fell victim to the killer's brutal impulse. Other non-prostitutes were to succumb later. The case brought stark terror to the women of West Yorkshire and indeed all over Britain. It also prompted the biggest murder hunt of the century. But in January 1981, when the Ripper was finally caught, it happened almost by chance. The bearded Sutcliffe was discovered by Sheffield police in his Rover V8 with a colored prostitute named Ava Rivers. The car carried false number plates and contained the grim tools of the Ripper's trade: a hammer, garrote, and sharpened Phillips-type screwdriver. Ava Rivers could count herself the luckiest woman in Britain that night. She would have been the next victim. Back at the police station, the police knew that they had found the Ripper at last. He turned out to be a married man, born in 1946 at Bingley near Bradford, and now living in a respectable middle-class district of that city. In his time, he had held down a variety of jobs, including that of gravedigger at Bingley Cemetery. Ironically, he had been interviewed routinely no fewer than 9 times before in the police trial for the murder killer. What had motivated him? In August 1974, Sutcliffe had married a demure schoolteacher named Sonia Surzma. The murder started little more than a year later, and many people speculated that in killing his victims, Sutcliffe was really trying to destroy his wife. Though the couple seems loving and were well liked, they were known to be rows. It was Sonia who did the shouting. The slightly built Sutcliffe would meekly ask only that she keep her voice down so as not to disturb the neighbors. Sonia had moreover suffered a period of mental illness in which she believed, among other things, that she was second coming of Christ. In short, there were tensions in the household, tensions which hardly explain the Ripper's act, but helped to fill in the background. The 3-week trial took place at the Old Bailey in May 1981. Fascination with the case was international, and illegally taken photographs of Sutcliffe in the docks were published in foreign magazines. The trial also raised important questions about the way in which the Ripper case had been handled by police. The £4 million manhunt had been badly misled by a hoax tape sent by a man with a Geordie accent who had posed as the Ripper. But the overriding issue on which Sutcliffe's fate depended was whether he was mad or not. Peter William Sutcliffe was charged with the murder of 13 women and attempts to kill another 7. He denied the murder charges but admitted manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. Under the 1957 Homicide Act, a prisoner must plead for a reduced charge of manslaughter on the grounds that he or she suffered some abnormality of mind which impaired his or her mental responsibility. In the Ripper case, The Attorney General was prepared to accept such a plea, but the judge was unhappy that the murder charges should be easily disposed of. He insisted that the case go before a jury, and so it was left to 12 ordinary people, 6 men, 6 women, to judge the killer's state of mind. From a certain point of view, anyone who did what Sutcliffe did must be mad. But the law cannot accept such a proposition, for it would result in a legal absurdity. Every crime is an abnormal act, so anyone who committed one might claim abnormality of mind in expectation of lenient treatment. Sutcliffe's defense was more specific. He alleged that he had heard voices ordering him to kill prostitutes. He had been a divine mission. In prison, he had been examined by 3 psychiatrists who unanimously declared him to be paranoid schizophrenic. Impassive in the dock, Sutcliffe gave no clue as to his mental condition, but against the expert's testimony was the possibility that the prisoner had simply faked his symptoms. For example, he had not mentioned hearing voices until several interviews after his capture. In custody, he was alleged to have remarked that if found to be loony, he would serve only 10 years instead of 30. From Sonia's bout of mental disturbance, he would have recalled convincing symptoms such as tactile hallucination. He claimed that he had experienced a hand tightening around his heart. But perhaps the most damning flaw in his story was the simple fact that many of his victims were not prostitutes at all. There was teenage Jane MacDonald, Josephine Whittaker, clerk in a building society, Barbara Leach and Jacqueline Hill, students, Marga Wells, a 47-year-old civil servant. On 22nd May 1981, the jury returned, deliberating for 5 hours and 55 minutes. On return, they found Peter William Sutcliffe guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, the judge recommending that a minimum of 30 years to be served. In the streets outside the Old Baileys, when news of the verdict arrived, a large crowd gave 3 cheers for the jury. It was reported that even in the psychiatric community, relief was immense that the expert's testimony had been rejected. Mystery, though, still surrounds the Ripper's mind. In prison at Parkhurst, he continued to claim hearing voices, and in March 1984, the Home Secretary ordered his removal to Broadmoor. Peter Sutcliffe, he disclosed, was in a condition of grave mental illness. Doctors, both at Parkhurst and Broadmoor, diagnosed paranoid schizophrenia. His state of mind had seriously deteriorated since admission to prison, and he could now be a threat to prison staff and others. Was he mad all along, or did he go mad faking madness? Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe and leave a comment, as it helps with YouTube algorithm to grow this channel. You will find similar contents in my other videos. Have a safe day. Signing off.